What if happiness isn't something you find, but something you practice badly every day? Welcome to Momentum Mind. This story will change how you see your thoughts, your habits, and the silent choices shaping your life right now. If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right, but still feel off, this one's for you. Let's go. Chapter 1: The Garden Where Joy is Learned. The city did not sleep, but it rarely felt awake either. Its streets hummed with motion, feet brushing stone, carts whispering past windows, voices rising and falling like waves that never quite reached the shore. People moved quickly, carrying lists in their minds and weight in their chests, always chasing something just ahead of them. Few noticed the narrow path between two leaning buildings where the noise softened and the air grew warmer, as if the world itself had decided to breathe more slowly there. At the end of that path stood a garden that did not appear on any map. It was not large, nor was it grand. Vines curled around wooden arches, leaves shimmered with a gentle glow, and the air carried a scent that reminded each visitor of something they had once loved and forgotten. Some said the garden had always been there. Others believed it appeared only when someone needed it. A woman waited inside. She wore no crown, no robe, nothing that marked her as important. Yet when she looked at someone, it felt as though she could see not just their face, but the quiet story beneath it. She was known by many names, though she never insisted on any. To some she was a guide. To others, a mirror. To a few, she was simply the one who asked the right questions. On this day, a visitor arrived carrying an invisible weight. The traveler did not know why their steps had turned toward the narrow path. They only knew that the usual ways had stopped working. Success had been chased, comfort collected, goals checked off like boxes on a wall, yet something inside remained hollow. Not painful. Just unfinished. The woman watched as the traveler crossed the threshold of the garden and paused, unsure whether to step farther. "You're not lost," she said gently. "You're early." The traveler laughed, unsure why. "Early for what?" "For learning how happiness actually works." They walked together along a path lined with stones that glowed faintly beneath their feet. Each stone reflected a memory the traveler barely recognized: laughter at an unexpected moment, the calm of early morning light, the strange warmth of helping someone without being seen. The traveler felt something stir, something familiar yet distant. "I've tried to be happy," the traveler said. "I did what I was told. I worked hard. I chased better days. But happiness never stayed." The woman nodded, as if she had heard this countless times. "That is because happiness is not a place you arrive at," she said. "It is a practice you learn. And most people are taught the wrong lessons." They reached a small clearing where a table stood, carved from living wood. Upon it lay a bowl filled with water that reflected not faces, but moments. The traveler leaned closer and saw flashes of their own life, triumphs that felt strangely empty, pleasures that faded too fast, achievements that demanded more the moment they were reached. "Why does it disappear?" the traveler asked. "Because you were told it would come from the outside," the woman said. "From things, from praise, from future versions of yourself. But happiness is not obedient. It does not arrive when summoned. It grows when tended." She dipped her fingers into the bowl. The water rippled, and the images shifted. "Long ago," she continued, "people believed happiness was fixed, like the color of your eyes or the shape of your bones. They believed some were born with more of it, and others must simply accept less. Then others claimed it could be bought, earned, or captured if one tried hard enough. Both beliefs were incomplete." The traveler watched the ripples form patterns, spirals turning inward then outward again. "There is a truth hidden between those ideas," she said. "Part of your joy is shaped by the world and by your nature. But another part, larger than most believe, can be grown through intention, attention, and action." The word action seemed to echo softly through the garden. The traveler frowned. "So happiness is work?" The woman smiled. "Not the kind that exhausts. The kind that aligns." She gestured toward the far end of the garden, where a narrow bridge arched over a pool of dark water. Beneath the surface, shapes moved slowly, like thoughts that had never been finished. "Most people stand on the edge of their lives," she said, "waiting to feel different before they act. But feelings often follow movement, not the other way around." As they crossed the bridge, the air shifted. The traveler felt lighter, but also strangely exposed, as if layers had been peeled away. "Inside you," the woman continued, "are habits of thought you did not choose. Comparisons that steal joy. Stories you repeat about who you are and what you deserve. These patterns feel like truth because they have been rehearsed so often. But they can be rewritten." The traveler stopped. "If that's true, why doesn't everyone do it?" The woman's eyes softened. "Because it requires awareness. And awareness is uncomfortable before it becomes freeing. They reached a gate made of intertwined branches. On it hung symbols that pulsed faintly, each representing something people chased endlessly: success, approval, security, pleasure. The gate was open, yet many symbols tugged at the traveler's attention, each whispering promises. "Those are not enemies," the woman said quietly. "But they make poor masters." Beyond the gate lay a path that curved out of sight. It shimmered with possibility, but also uncertainty. "Beyond this point," she said, "you will learn practices that seem simple but are powerful. Gratitude that reshapes memory. Kindness that loops back to the giver. Attention that transforms ordinary moments into sources of quiet joy. Meaning that grows not from fame, but from contribution." The traveler felt a tightening in the chest. "What if I fail?" The woman smiled, and this time there was warmth and mischief in it. "You will. Often. And that, too, will be part of the practice." A breeze passed through the garden, carrying the scent of rain that had not yet fallen. "One thing more," she added. "Happiness is not a constant state. It rises and falls like breath. The mistake is thinking it should never leave." The traveler looked down the path, heart beating faster, not from fear but from recognition. Something about this place felt honest in a way the world outside had never been. "I think I'm ready," they said. The woman stepped aside. "Good," she replied. "Because once you begin to see how happiness is shaped, you can never unsee it. And the world will start asking something of you in return." The path ahead shimmered, and somewhere beyond the curve, something unseen shifted, as if aware that the journey had truly begun. Chapter 2: The Mirror Hall of Becoming Used to Joy. The path beyond the branch gate did not feel like a road in the usual sense. It did not cut through land so much as it unfolded beneath the traveler's feet, like a ribbon being unrolled by unseen hands. The garden's warmth faded behind them, replaced by air that carried a cool, clean sharpness, as if the world here had been rinsed and left to dry. Ahead stood a building made of pale stone that reflected no sunlight, yet seemed gently lit from within. It rose in quiet layers, with wide steps leading up to doors that were neither locked nor truly open. The traveler paused at the bottom step, suddenly aware of their own breathing, of the way their shoulders sat too high as if guarding something. The woman had not followed onto the path, yet her voice found the traveler anyway, soft as a thought. "Go inside," she said. "This is where most people begin to understand why they keep returning to the same feelings." The traveler climbed the steps, each one slightly warmer than the last, as if the building recognized their approach. When they reached the doors, they parted without sound. Inside was a hall of mirrors. Not the playful kind that distort faces for laughter. These mirrors were tall, narrow, and arranged in long rows so that a person could walk between them like walking through a corridor of repeated selves. Their frames were made of dark wood carved with tiny shapes, hands reaching, eyes blinking, mouths speaking, hearts beating. The air smelled faintly of dust and rain, like an attic where old truths are stored. The traveler stepped forward. At once, the mirrors woke. One showed the traveler at a table surrounded by others, smiling in the right places, nodding at the right moments, laughing at jokes that barely touched them. Another showed the traveler alone, scrolling through an endless parade of other lives, each one shining brighter than their own. Another showed the traveler receiving praise, and yet feeling it slide off like water on glass, leaving nothing behind. The traveler stopped, unsettled. "These aren't exactly memories. They're patterns," the woman's voice said, now closer, as if she stood just behind the traveler's shoulder. Yet when the traveler turned, no one was there. "You don't remember them because they aren't single moments. They are loops." The traveler took a cautious step. The mirrors adjusted, as if they were listening. A mirror on the right shimmered and showed a version of the traveler holding something precious. A new object, a new opportunity, a new relationship. In the reflection, their eyes lit up with a relief so sharp it looked like hunger finally satisfied. But then the scene shifted. The glow dulled. The traveler in the mirror began to search for the next thing, restless again, as if the treasure in their hands had turned to ash. The traveler pressed a palm against the glass. It was cold. "Why does it always happen?" they asked, voice low. "Why does the joy fade so quickly?" The air in the hall seemed to deepen, like a breath drawn in. "You were built to adapt," the woman's voice said. "Your mind is a machine that normalizes. It can survive storms by learning the shape of the wind. It can heal by learning how to live with scars. But it also does this with good things. It takes a blessing and, with time, treats it like wallpaper." A mirror ahead flickered and revealed an ordinary scene, the traveler waking in a bed, sunlight spilling across the floor. At first, the traveler in the mirror looked grateful just to be warm and safe. But the scene repeated, again and again, until the face became blank, bored, already reaching for complaint. The traveler swallowed. So even the good becomes invisible. Yes, said the woman. And because it becomes invisible, people chase louder, shinier things. They think the problem is that they don't have enough. But often the problem is that their mind has stopped noticing. The traveler moved deeper into the hall. The mirrors began to change shape, as if responding to the traveler's attention. Some became clearer, others fogged slightly. The traveler noticed something strange. When they stared hard at a mirror, trying to force an answer, the image grew cloudy. But when they softened their gaze, the reflection sharpened. At the end of one row stood a mirror that did not show the traveler at all. Instead, it showed a river. It flowed through a wide valley under a sky that shifted from gold to gray to gold again. On the riverbank stood people dipping cups into the water. Some drank calmly. Others drank desperately, gulping as if the river might disappear. A few argued over the best spot to stand. A few stared at others' cups, judging the size and shine. The traveler leaned closer, drawn in by the scene's quiet pull. A figure in the mirror turned its head and looked directly at the traveler, as if it could see through the glass. It had the traveler's eyes, but older somehow, tired in the way of someone who has tried the same solution too many times. The figure lifted its cup to its mouth, drank, then grimaced, peering inside as if betrayed. It shook the cup, tipped it upside down, then ran along the riverbank looking for a different place to drink, convinced the water must be better elsewhere. The traveler felt a sting of recognition. "That's me," they whispered. "It is," the woman said. "Not your whole self, but one of your strongest habits." The traveler pulled back from the mirror as if it might grab them. The hall seemed to narrow. The air felt heavier. "What do I do with this?" the traveler asked. "If my mind keeps getting used to everything, how do I ever stay happy?" A soft sound came from somewhere deeper inside the hall. Like a bell, but muted. Like metal touched gently. "You do not fight adaptation," the woman replied. "You learn to work with it." The traveler followed the sound, stepping past mirrors that now showed subtler scenes. The traveler eating, the traveler walking, the traveler speaking with someone they loved. Each reflection had two possible versions. In one, the traveler moved through the moment half asleep, mind elsewhere, eyes dull. In the other, the traveler was present, fully present, seeing textures, hearing tones, noticing warmth, noticing detail. The second version looked almost like magic, though nothing supernatural happened. It was only attention. And yet it changed everything. The traveler stopped at a mirror where the second version was shining brighter. How could simple attention make a moment feel fuller, deeper? The woman's voice softened. "When you train your mind to notice, the world becomes richer without changing. People think happiness requires a new life. But often it requires a new way of seeing the same life." At the center of the hall stood a pedestal with a bowl much like the one in the garden, but the water here was darker, like ink diluted in rain. Above it hung a lantern that burned without flame. Its light did not brighten the room so much as reveal what was already there. The traveler approached, and the water in the bowl stirred on its own. "What is this?" they asked. "A test," the woman said. "Not of your worth. Of your tendencies." The traveler hesitated, then dipped their fingers into the water. Instantly, the hall shifted. The mirrors around them flashed into scenes that felt sharper, closer. The traveler saw a version of themselves winning something they had wanted for a long time. In the reflection, they cried with relief and joy. They hugged someone. They laughed in disbelief. Then, like a curtain dropped too soon, the next scene arrived. The same traveler sat alone, staring at their prize with a faint frown. Already thinking of what came next. Already comparing themselves to someone who had a bigger version of the same thing. Already worried that the praise would end. The traveler's stomach tightened. The mirrors did not stop. A new scene, the traveler receiving love. Then, later, doubting it. A new scene, the traveler being safe. Then, later, fearing loss. A new scene, the traveler achieving a dream. Then, later, making it ordinary. It felt like being caught in a current that pulled them toward dissatisfaction no matter what shore they reached. The traveler yanked their hand out of the bowl. The images snapped back to stillness. They stood trembling, not from fear of danger, but from a strange grief, the grief of realizing how many good moments had been eaten quietly by their own mind's hunger for more. "I thought something was wrong with me," the traveler said, voice rough. "I thought I was broken." The hall seemed to listen. Even the air held still. "You are not broken," the woman replied. "You are human. Your mind is doing what it was shaped to do. The mistake was believing that the fading of joy meant you needed a different life. You needed different skills." The traveler took a slow breath. Somewhere in the hall, water dripped. The sound felt loud. You said this place is where most people begin, the traveler said. So what do they learn first? The mirrors along the walls brightened, and for a moment the traveler saw something new, not a reflection, but a doorway in the glass. A doorway that had not been there before. The woman's voice grew more direct. First, they learn that happiness is not only a matter of circumstance. Second, they learn that chasing circumstances alone is a trap. And then, only then, they learn the practices that break the loop. The traveler stared at the doorway in the mirror. It looked solid. Reachable. But the traveler also sensed something behind it, something waiting. Not a monster, not a villain, but a force, old as breath, that resisted change. The part of the traveler that insisted on staying familiar, even if familiar meant unsatisfied. The traveler raised a hand toward the mirror door, fingers hovering an inch from the glass. What's on the other side? They whispered. The woman's voice did not answer right away. When it came, it was gentle, but it carried a warning like velvet covering steel. The other side is where you begin choosing your happiness on purpose, she said. And the first thing you will meet there is the voice that says you shouldn't bother. The traveler's fingertips touched the glass. It warmed beneath their skin, as if recognizing them. The mirror door shivered, and a thin line of light appeared along its edge, like the first crack in a locked room. The traveler inhaled. And the door began to open. Chapter 3: The Garden of Small Choices. The door did not swing open all at once. It resisted, not with force, but with weight, the kind that asks whether you truly mean to pass through. The traveler leaned forward, pressing their palm against the warm glass, and felt something press back. Not a barrier, but a question. When the door finally yielded, it did so quietly, as if it had always been waiting. On the other side was a garden unlike the first. This one was untamed. Paths curled in uncertain directions, some fading into tall grass, others splitting into smaller trails that vanished almost as soon as they appeared. Plants grew in uneven clusters, some vibrant and blooming, others wilted, their leaves curled inward. The air was alive with movement, birds darting between branches, insects humming in patterns that felt intentional, though no rhythm repeated for long. The traveler stepped inside, and the door sealed itself behind them with a soft exhale. At once, the ground shifted slightly beneath their feet, not enough to throw them off balance, but enough to demand attention. Careful! Came the familiar voice. The woman stood beneath a crooked tree whose branches bent low, heavy with fruit of many colors. Some glowed faintly. Others looked ordinary, even dull. This place responds to small things, she said. Small steps. Small choices. The traveler looked around. It feels messy. Yes, she replied. Because this is where life actually happens. They began to walk. As they moved, the traveler noticed that the ground reacted to their steps. When they walked with hesitation, the earth softened, becoming uneven, making each step more difficult. When they walked with quiet intention, the ground firmed, smoothing slightly beneath their feet. It's responding to how I move, the traveler said. Not how you move, the woman corrected gently. Why? They passed a patch of flowers bent under their own weight. Their petals were beautiful but heavy, drooping as if tired of being admired. Nearby, a small plant pushed through a crack in a stone, its leaves plain but upright, alive with stubborn energy. People think happiness comes from grand changes, the woman said. New jobs. New cities. New versions of themselves. But most of your days are made of small moments, repeated until they become your life. The traveler knelt beside the small plant. This one looks stronger. It is, she said. Not because it is special, but because it grows where it is planted. They walked on. The path narrowed until it forced the traveler to slow. Every few steps, a signpost appeared carved from simple wood. Each bore a single phrase. Pause. Choose again. Notice this. Breathe. The traveler scoffed softly. These seem too simple. The woman smiled. That thought is one of the most powerful traps in this garden. The traveler frowned. How can something so small matter? Instead of answering, the woman knelt and picked up a pebble from the ground. She placed it in the traveler's hand. Hold this, she said. The pebble was warm, smooth, unremarkable. Now imagine holding it all day, she continued. You wouldn't notice it at first. But over time, it would press into your skin. You would shift it, adjust your grip, maybe even forget it's there. And yet, by nightfall, your hand would ache. The traveler nodded slowly. Small things, the woman said, shape the experience of living more than the rare, dramatic ones. They reached a clearing where the ground dipped into a shallow bowl. At its center stood a mirror-still pool. Unlike the earlier bowls, this one reflected not the traveler's image, but their recent moments. The travelers saw themselves waking that morning, reaching automatically for distraction. They saw themselves eating without tasting, listening without hearing, speaking without meaning. None of it was cruel. None of it was evil. It was simply unconscious. A ripple passed through the pool, and a new image formed, the same moments, but lived slightly differently. A pause before reaching. A breath taken fully. A moment of presence where there had been none. The difference was subtle, but the feeling was not. The traveler felt it in their chest, a quiet warmth, like a candle lit in a draftless room. "This is the skill most people overlook," the woman said. "They chase big changes, but their days are built from tiny habits of attention. Change those, and you change the shape of your life." The traveler stood silently, watching the water. "But it feels so small," they said at last. "Like it couldn't possibly be enough." The woman's gaze sharpened, though her voice stayed gentle. "Small does not mean weak. A river carves stone not by force, but by persistence." The garden darkened slightly, clouds drifting overhead. A breeze moved through the leaves, carrying whispers, fragments of thought, half-formed doubts. "This won't work. You'll forget. You'll try for a day and stop." The traveler stiffened. "Those voices," they said. "They are not enemies," the woman replied. "They are habits of protection. They try to save you from disappointment by keeping you from effort." The whispers grew louder, overlapping. "You've failed before. Why would this be different?" The traveler's breath shortened. "What do I do when they speak?" they asked. The woman walked to a small stone bench and sat her. "You listen," she said, "and then you choose again." She gestured for the traveler to sit beside her. "These voices don't disappear," she continued, "but you don't have to obey them. Think of them as weather. Loud, convincing weather. But not the sky." The traveler considered this. The whispers still moved through the air, but now they felt farther away. "Choice," the woman said, "is the smallest unit of change. Not willpower. Not motivation. Choice." The traveler looked at their hands. "But choices are exhausting." "Yes," she agreed. "Which is why we practice them when they are small. So they become easier when they matter most." A path began to glow faintly at the edge of the clearing. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. "That path leads deeper," the woman said. "But before you go, you must understand something." She stood and faced the traveler fully now. "You will not always choose well. You will forget. You will fall back into old rhythms. This does not mean you are failing. It means you are human." The traveler felt something loosen inside their chest. "In this garden," the woman continued, "progress is not measured by perfection. It is measured by return." The traveler stood and took a step toward the glowing path. The ground responded, steady beneath their feet. "What's next?" they asked. The woman smiled, though there was a hint of gravity behind it. "Next," she said, "you will learn why kindness, especially toward yourself, is not a luxury, but a force that reshapes everything it touches." As she spoke, the air shifted again. The path ahead darkened slightly, not with threat, but with depth, as if it led into something more intimate, more vulnerable. The traveler hesitated at the edge, sensing that whatever waited beyond would not be abstract or distant. It would be personal. And as they stepped forward, the garden seemed to hold its breath. Chapter 4: The House with Soft Walls. The path narrowed as the traveler stepped forward, and the garden behind them faded like a remembered dream. The air thickened, warm and close, carrying a scent like rain-soaked wood and clean linen. The ground no longer felt like soil beneath their feet. It softened, absorbing each step, as though the world itself were cushioning their weight. Ahead stood a house. It did not rise proudly or demand attention. It seemed to lean inward, modest and unassuming, its walls curved instead of straight. Light glowed from its windows, not bright, but steady, as if it had been waiting a long time for someone to arrive. The traveler felt an unexpected tightening in their chest. "This place feels familiar," they said. The woman appeared beside them once more, her presence quiet but steady. "It should," she replied. "This is where you keep the parts of yourself you're hardest on." They approached the door. It was slightly ajar. From inside came sounds soft, indistinct. A sigh. A laugh cut short. A murmur of self-talk, half kind, half cruel. The traveler hesitated. "What if I don't like what's inside?" they asked. The woman looked at them with calm certainty. "You already live with it. You've just never listened this closely. The door opened at a touch. Inside, the house was warm but dim, lit by lamps that glowed like embers. The walls were lined with portraits, not paintings, but moments frozen in feeling. Not accomplishments or milestones, but reactions. One showed the traveler making a small mistake and flinching inwardly, as if struck. Another showed them watching someone else succeed, their smile tight, their chest heavy with comparison. Another showed exhaustion masked as strength. The traveler swallowed. I didn't know I carried all this. Everyone does, the woman said softly. But few look at it with honesty. They walked deeper inside. The floor creaked gently, like it was breathing with them. In the center of the room stood a long table, and scattered across it were objects both familiar and strange: a cracked mirror, a feather bent out of shape, a stack of letters never opened, a small stone with the word enough etched into it. The traveler reached for the stone, then stopped. What happens if I touch something? They asked. You feel what you've been avoiding, the woman replied. The traveler exhaled slowly and picked up the cracked mirror. At once, a wave of emotion surged through them, shame, sharp and hot. They saw themselves through eyes that were merciless, eyes that remembered every misstep and replayed them endlessly. I should have known better, the traveler whispered. The mirror grew heavier. This is how you speak to yourself when you fall, the woman said. Not with guidance. With punishment. The traveler's chest tightened. It's supposed to make me better. The woman shook her head. It makes you afraid. The traveler set the mirror down, hands trembling. Across the room, something shifted. A door creaked open to reveal another space, smaller and dimmer. Inside sat a younger version of the traveler, knees pulled close, eyes downcast. The air around them felt fragile, like a breath held too long. The traveler froze. I didn't know they were still here. They never left, the woman said. They just learned to be quiet. The traveler took a step forward, heart pounding. The younger self flinched at the movement. I don't want to hurt you, the traveler whispered. The child did not look up. You already did, the child said softly, voice thin as thread. When you believed the harsh voice was right. The words landed heavy, settling deep. I thought being hard on myself would make me better, the traveler said, voice breaking. I thought kindness would make me weak. The woman's voice wrapped around them both. That belief is common. And deeply mistaken. The room darkened slightly, as if drawing focus inward. Harshness can create motion, she continued. But only kindness creates growth. The child looked up now, eyes wet but searching. What does kindness look like? The child asked. The traveler hesitated. They had offered kindness so easily to others. To friends. To strangers. But toward themselves, it felt foreign, almost forbidden. Slowly, they knelt and met the child's gaze. It looks like staying, they said quietly. Even when I mess up. The air shifted. The child's shoulders relaxed just a little. The woman stepped closer. Self-kindness is not indulgence, she said. It is the courage to meet pain without adding more. The room brightened, just a touch. Around them, the portraits on the walls began to change. Moments once filled with criticism softened. The traveler saw themselves stumble, then pause, breathe, and try again. They saw failure met not with cruelty, but with curiosity. The house seemed to exhale. The traveler felt warmth spread through their chest, not excitement, not pride, but something steadier. A quiet acceptance. But what about growth? The traveler asked. If I'm too gentle, won't I stop trying? The woman smiled. Think of a plant, she said. Does it grow better when you shout at it? Or when you water it consistently? The traveler almost laughed. The child stood now, steadier on their feet. I don't need you to be perfect, the child said. I just need you to stay. The traveler reached out, and this time, the child did not flinch. They embraced, and the house responded. The walls softened further, light spilling from unseen cracks. The weight in the air lifted. Somewhere, a bell chimed softly. The woman stepped back, giving them space. Compassion changes the way you move through difficulty, she said. It doesn't remove effort. It makes effort sustainable. The traveler nodded, feeling the truth of it settle not in the mind, but deeper, in the body, in the breath. A new doorway appeared where the wall had been, its edges glowing faintly. Beyond it, the air looked cooler, clearer. What's next? The traveler asked, though they sensed the answer would challenge them again. The woman's gaze grew thoughtful. Next, she said, you will face the illusion that you are alone in your struggle. The door began to open. And from beyond it came the sound of many footsteps, not approaching, but moving together. The traveler took one steady breath and stepped forward. Chapter 5: The Web of Invisible Threads. The door opened without a sound, and the warmth of the house gave way to a cool, open expanse. The travelers stepped forward and found themselves standing on a wide stone platform suspended in open air. There were no walls, no ceiling, only a vast sky stretching endlessly in all directions. The light here was softer, diffused, as though filtered through unseen layers of meaning. Beneath the platform stretched a network. At first it looked like mist, but as the travelers' eyes adjusted, they saw it clearly: threads, countless, shimmering strands weaving outward in every direction. Some were bright and taut, others faint and frayed. They crossed and braided and diverged endlessly, forming a living tapestry that pulsed with slow, rhythmic motion. "What is this place?" the traveler asked, their voice swallowed gently by the open air. The woman stepped beside them, her presence calm against the immensity. "This is where you learn that you were never as alone as you believed." The traveler stared at the threads. Some glowed warmly when they brushed against one another. Others dimmed, almost invisible, as if neglected. "Each thread," the woman said, "is a connection. To a person, a moment, a shared emotion. Some you remember. Many you do not." The traveler leaned closer to the edge of the platform. Below, they saw figures moving along the threads, each one absorbed in their own motion. Some walked steadily. Some stumbled. Some paused to help others regain their footing. Some pulled away, their threads stretching thin. A thread near the traveler pulsed faintly, catching their eye. When they focused on it, the air shimmered, and a scene unfolded. They saw themselves years ago, sitting across from someone they barely remembered now. A brief conversation. A shared laugh. A small kindness exchanged without thought. The moment had seemed insignificant at the time. Yet here it was, glowing softly. "That mattered?" the traveler whispered. "More than you know," the woman replied. "Kindness echoes. It rarely announces where it goes." Another thread flared to life, this one dimmer, frayed. The traveler saw a moment of withdrawal, choosing silence instead of honesty, distance instead of vulnerability. Not cruelty. Just absence. "That too," the woman said gently, reading the traveler's expression. "Absence also leaves a mark." The traveler felt a tightening in their chest. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Most harm is unintentional," she said. "It grows from fear, not malice." The wind shifted, and with it came sound, soft murmurs, like many voices speaking at once. Not words, but emotions: longing, relief, gratitude, grief. The air vibrated with them. "This is what you belong to," the woman said. "Not a single path, but a shared field of influence." The traveler watched as two threads touched and brightened. When one dimmed, the other responded, lending its glow. "Is this connection?" the traveler asked. "Yes," she replied. "And responsibility." The word landed heavily. "Not obligation," the woman clarified. "Impact." The platform beneath their feet trembled gently. "Most people believe happiness is private," she continued. "Something to be earned or lost alone. But joy spreads. So does despair. We shape each other constantly, whether we mean to or not." The traveler looked down at their own chest and gasped softly. Threads extended from them too, countless, reaching outward in every direction. Some glowed bright and strong. Others flickered weakly, barely holding. "I didn't know," the traveler whispered. "You weren't meant to see this all at once," the woman said. "It would overwhelm you. But now you are ready to understand one truth." She placed a hand over the traveler's heart. "Your well-being is not separate from the well-being of others." The traveler swallowed. "That feels heavy." "It can be," she said. "But it can also be freeing." A ripple moved through the web. In the distance, a thread snapped, silent, but visible. Somewhere, a figure stumbled and fell to their knees. The traveler gasped. "What happened?" "Disconnection," the woman said. "A moment of isolation left unhealed." Before the traveler could speak, another thread stretched across the gap, reconnecting what was broken. The fallen figure steadied, then stood. The traveler exhaled in relief. "You see?" the woman said. "No one is meant to hold everything alone." The traveler's gaze dropped to their own threads again. Some pulsed weakly. "How do I strengthen them?" they asked. "Not by forcing closeness," she replied, "but by practicing care. Small acts. Listening. Presence. Letting yourself be seen." The word seen echoed. "I'm not very good at that," the traveler admitted. The woman smiled, kind but knowing. Most people aren't. It feels dangerous to reveal the unpolished parts. The web shimmered, and an image appeared before them, the traveler, laughing freely with others, shoulders relaxed. Then another image, the traveler alone, but at peace, not lonely, simply still. Connection includes solitude, the woman said. But not isolation. The air shifted again, cooler now. What happens when threads break? The traveler asked quietly. The woman's gaze softened. They don't vanish. They leave marks. Memories. Lessons. Sometimes grief. The word hung heavy between them. But even grief, she continued, is proof of connection. Pain is the echo of love that had nowhere else to go. The traveler closed their eyes. They remembered losses they had tried not to touch. Conversations never finished. Doors closed too quickly. Names they avoided thinking about. The threads pulsed brighter, not with pain, but with remembrance. A warmth spread through the traveler's chest, not the sharp warmth of excitement, but something deeper and steadier. What do I do with all this? They asked. The woman gestured toward a path forming at the edge of the platform, winding downward into a valley where light and shadow mingled. You carry it forward, she said. You let it shape how you treat yourself and others. And when you forget, as you will, you return. The traveler nodded slowly. As they stepped toward the path, a thread brushed against their hand. It pulsed warmly, then settled. The traveler felt it then, not pressure, not obligation, but belonging. Behind them, the web continued to hum softly, alive with countless lives touching, separating, reconnecting. Ahead, the path narrowed and dipped into a place where shadows gathered thickly, where the light dimmed not with absence, but with depth. The woman's voice followed them, calm and steady. The next place will ask you to face what you've been avoiding. The traveler took one more breath. And stepped forward into the shadowed path, where something waited, quiet, patient, and very familiar. Chapter 6. The Valley of the Unseen Weight. The light faded gradually as the traveler stepped into the valley, not as if night had fallen, but as if the world had decided to speak more softly. The air here was thicker, not heavy, but dense with meaning. Each breath felt fuller, as though it carried more than oxygen, memories, expectations, unfinished thoughts. The ground sloped downward, and with every step, the traveler felt a subtle pull, not downward but inward. The sky above narrowed into a ribbon of dim silver, barely visible between rising stone walls that curved like the ribs of some ancient, resting creature. The woman walked beside the traveler, quieter than before. This place, she said, is where people carry what they refuse to name. The traveler nodded slowly. Something in their chest tightened, as though the valley itself were pressing gently against it. The path was littered with objects, not scattered, but placed, as though set down carefully and forgotten. A heavy coat folded neatly on a rock. A bundle of letters tied with fraying twine. A cracked mask with a smiling face. A pair of shoes worn thin at the soles. The traveler stopped near the shoes. I remember these, they whispered. The woman did not ask how. She only said, You don't have to explain. The traveler reached down, fingers hovering just above the worn leather. As they did, a feeling rose, not a memory exactly, but the weight of many moments layered together. Long days of pretending to be fine. Evenings spent replaying conversations. The effort of standing tall when something inside felt bent. I thought if I ignored it long enough, the traveler said, it would go away. The woman nodded. Many try to outrun their weight. But uncared things do not disappear. They wait. The air shifted. The path grew steeper, and the ground beneath their feet felt uneven, as though shaped by countless footsteps dragging rather than walking. Ahead, a figure sat hunched near the edge of the path. The traveler froze. It was them. Or rather, it was a version of them, older in posture, younger in hope. Their shoulders slumped forward as if holding an invisible burden. Their gaze was fixed on the ground, unfocused. The traveler's heart thudded painfully. I don't want to see this, they whispered. The woman placed a hand lightly on their back. You already have. This is simply seeing it clearly. They approached slowly. The figure did not look up. What are you carrying? The traveler asked softly. The figure's voice was quiet, hoarse from long use. Everything I didn't say. Everything I swallowed to keep the peace. Every time I told myself it didn't matter. The traveler felt a tightness in their throat. I thought I was being strong, the figure continued. But I was just afraid of being difficult. The words landed like stones. The traveler knelt, meeting the figure at eye level. You were trying to survive, they said. That matters. The figure hesitated, then looked up. Their eyes held both relief and disbelief. Does it? They asked. Yes, the traveler said, more firmly now. But you don't have to keep carrying it alone. The valley seemed to lean closer, listening. The woman stepped forward. This is the weight people confuse for who they are, she said. But it is not identity. It is accumulation. The figure trembled. If I put it down, who am I? The traveler reached out, and this time, the figure did not pull away. You're still you, they said. Just with your hands free. Slowly, trembling, the figure loosened their grip. A heavy shape fell to the ground between them, shapeless, dark, absorbing light. It made no sound when it landed, yet the ground shuddered slightly. The air grew lighter. The figure straightened, their posture changing almost imperceptibly. The deep lines of strain softened. The traveler felt their own chest loosen in response. Around them, other shapes began to stir. Shadows lifted from the ground, not menacing, but tired. Each represented a burden once carried silently: expectations, guilt, unspoken grief, old fears. They did not vanish. They simply rested. This is not forgetting, the woman said. It is acknowledging. The traveler exhaled, a breath they hadn't known they were holding. Why does it feel lighter? They asked. Because resistance weighs more than pain, she replied. The path ahead widened, and the air began to move again. A faint breeze carried the scent of something clean, rain perhaps, or morning. The traveler looked back once more at the figure who had been them. That version now stood taller, watching with quiet gratitude. I'll walk with you, the figure said. The traveler nodded. You already are. As they turned to continue, the valley shifted. The walls no longer pressed inward. Light filtered down in soft bands, illuminating the path ahead. But there was something else now, a tension in the air, a sense of approaching challenge. The woman slowed her steps. Up ahead, she said, you will face the place where many turn back. The traveler swallowed. Why? Because it asks you to take responsibility not just for your pain, she said, but for your joy. The words echoed in the valley, heavier than any burden yet. The path curved sharply, disappearing into a stretch of shadow deeper than any before. From within it came a faint sound, not threatening, not welcoming. Waiting. The traveler took one more steady breath and stepped forward, unaware that the next place would test not their strength, but their willingness to choose happiness even when it felt undeserved. Chapter 7: The Threshold of Choice. The shadow ahead did not feel empty. It felt expectant. As the traveler stepped forward, the air thickened again, but not with weight, with possibility. The path narrowed until it became a single line of stone suspended over a quiet depth. Beneath it, nothing moved. Above it, nothing watched. The world seemed to hold its breath. The woman stopped at the edge. This is as far as I go, she said gently. The traveler turned. You're not coming? She smiled, not sadly, but with a kind of faith. You don't need me here. You've already learned to listen. The traveler hesitated, a flicker of fear rising. What if I choose wrong? The woman tilted her head. You will. The words landed softly, without judgment. And then? The traveler asked. Then you will choose again. The path ahead shimmered faintly, like heat rising from stone. The traveler took a step forward, and the world shifted. They were no longer walking. They were standing in a wide, circular space with no walls and no sky. The ground beneath them was smooth and pale, reflecting light from nowhere. In the center stood a single object, a scale. Not a scale of weight, but of balance. On one side rested a glowing stone, warm and pulsing gently. On the other side lay nothing. The scale tilted sharply. The traveler approached slowly. What does it measure? They asked. A voice answered, but it was not the woman's. It was their own. It measures where you place your attention. The traveler swallowed. Images flickered into being around them, moments from their life, both small and large. A quiet morning ruined by a single anxious thought. A celebration dulled by comparison. A compliment brushed aside. A mistake replayed long after it had passed. Each image drifted toward the scale and settled on the heavier side. The glow dimmed. The traveler watched as more and more moments stacked there, worries, regrets, imagined futures, self-judgments, until the scale leaned steeply, straining. This is what I do, the traveler whispered. I feed the weight. Yes, the voice replied. Without realizing it. The traveler looked down at their hands. They were empty. Can I remove them? They asked. The air shifted, and a quiet answer came. You can choose what to add. The traveler reached toward one of the heavy images, a memory of failure, and hesitated. It seemed fused to the scale, as if removing it might break something. What happens if I stop feeding it? They asked. The image flickered. Then it grows still, the voice said. Not gone, but no longer fed. The traveler pulled their hand back and instead turned toward the glowing stone. It pulsed warmly, steady and patient. They lifted it. The scale shifted. Just a little. The traveler felt it immediately, not relief, but space. A breath between thoughts. A moment not filled. What is this? They asked. Choice, the voice replied. Attention given deliberately. The traveler looked around. More stones appeared on the ground, each glowing faintly. Moments of appreciation. Acts of kindness. Tiny decisions to stay present instead of spiraling. They were small. Almost insignificant. Yet when placed on the scale, they mattered. The traveler began to understand. Happiness was not a prize waiting at the end of effort. It was a direction. A leaning. A practice of returning attention to what nourished rather than what drained. The scale wobbled, then steadied, not balanced perfectly, but no longer collapsing under one side. The space around them brightened slightly. A whisper drifted through the air, soft but firm. You do not control what appears in your mind. You choose what you carry forward. The traveler closed their eyes. For the first time, they did not try to silence their thoughts or push them away. They let them pass, like clouds moving across a wide sky. Some were dark. Some light. None stayed forever. When they opened their eyes, the scale had changed again. It was no longer a scale. It was a path. A path that curved gently upward, lit from within. The traveler stepped onto it, and the space responded, not with judgment, but with allowance. As they walked, the weight in their chest shifted, not gone, but redistributed. More manageable. More human. Ahead, the path narrowed again, and in the distance, something waited, not a place, but a presence. The traveler felt a familiar tightening in their stomach. What now? They whispered. From somewhere both within and beyond, a calm answer rose. Now you learn how to live with your mind without being ruled by it. The air shimmered. And the path led onward, toward a place where thought and awareness would meet, and where the next lesson would begin. Chapter 8. The Room That Thinks Back. The path narrowed until it felt less like a road and more like a thought being followed. The light softened again, dim but not dark, like dusk settling without urgency. The air grew still, carrying a quiet tension, not threatening, but attentive, as if the world itself were listening. Ahead stood a structure unlike any before. It had no clear edges. Its walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting almost imperceptibly. They were neither stone nor wood, but something in between, smooth, pale, and faintly reflective, like the inside of a shell. There was no door, only an opening that appeared as the traveler approached. They stepped inside. Immediately, the air shifted. It felt intimate, enclosed, yet strangely vast, as though the space extended far beyond what the eyes could see. The sound of footsteps faded, replaced by a gentle hum, not noise, but awareness. This is where thought lives, came the familiar voice, softer now, closer. The woman stood near the center of the room, but she seemed different here. Less defined. As if she were part of the space rather than standing within it. The traveler took a step, and the room responded. The walls shimmered, and suddenly words appeared, not written but felt. Thoughts. Their thoughts. They appeared in fragments, drifting like mist. What if this never works? You should be further along by now. Why can't you just be normal? This won't last. The traveler stiffened. They're louder here, they said. Yes, the woman replied. Because here, you're not running from them. The thoughts circled, not attacking, but persistent. Each carried a faint emotional charge, worry, shame, doubt, enough to pull attention toward it. The traveler reached out instinctively, trying to push one away. The moment they did, it grew denser, heavier. It's getting worse, they said. The woman nodded. Because struggle feeds it. The traveler lowered their hand, breathing unevenly. Then what do I do? Notice, she said simply. The traveler hesitated. That's it. That's the beginning. One thought drifted closer than the others. You're wasting time. The traveler felt a familiar spike of anxiety. But instead of reacting, they simply watched it. The thought shimmered. Another appeared. You should be better by now. The traveler noticed the tightness in their chest. The urge to argue. To defend. They didn't. They just noticed. Something strange happened. The thoughts began to slow. Not disappear, but soften. Like echoes losing strength as they moved farther from their source. The traveler blinked. They're changing. They always do, the woman said. Thoughts are events, not truths. They pass when they are not fed. A new thought drifted into view, gentler than the others. You're trying. The traveler felt warmth bloom quietly in their chest. That one feels different, they said. Yes, the woman replied. Because it's aligned with what is actually happening. The room shifted again. Now the thoughts came in pairs, one sharp, one kind. You failed again. You're learning. You'll never change. Change is slow, not impossible. The traveler noticed something else now. The thoughts were no longer inside them. They were happening in front of them. I'm not the thoughts, the traveler whispered. The woman smiled. You never were. The room brightened slightly, as if pleased. This is the difference between being caught in the storm and watching the weather, she continued. The storm still exists. But it no longer decides where you go. The traveler felt a quiet sense of relief, not dramatic, not euphoric, but steady. But if I don't follow my thoughts, they asked, what do I follow? The floor beneath them warmed. Values, the woman said. What matters to you, even when it's uncomfortable? The room responded by opening a space in the center. Within it appeared scenes, not memories, but intentions. The traveler saw themselves choosing honesty when it was awkward. Choosing rest when productivity demanded more. Choosing kindness when bitterness would have been easier. Each scene glowed softly. These are directions, not destinations, the woman said. You won't always follow them perfectly. That's not the point. The traveler felt a sense of grounding, like roots forming beneath their feet. But how do I remember this when everything feels loud again? They asked. The woman stepped closer, placing a hand over the traveler's heart. You return to the body, she said. To the breath. To the present moment. Not to escape thought, but to anchor yourself while it passes. The room seemed to exhale. The walls softened, becoming translucent. Beyond them, another landscape waited, brighter, more open. The traveler felt both ready and hesitant. What if I forget? They asked quietly. The woman met their gaze. You will. A pause. And then you will remember again. The room began to dissolve, its edges blurring into light. As the traveler stepped forward, they felt something settle within them, not certainty, not peace, but trust. A trust that even when the mind grew loud, there was a place to stand that was not shaken by it. The last thing they heard before the room faded was the woman's voice, warm and steady. Next, you will learn how joy grows when you give it away. Chapter 9, The Circle That Widens. The light shifted as the traveler stepped forward, not brighter, but warmer, like standing near a fire that did not burn. The air carried movement now, a gentle current that brushed past skin and stirred something beneath it. The space opened wide, vast yet intimate, as if shaped not by walls but by intention. At the center of this new place stood a circle. It was not drawn or built. It existed because people stood within it. Figures appeared slowly, one by one, forming a wide ring. They were different in shape, age, and presence, yet each carried a familiar weight, the quiet heaviness of being human. Some stood confidently. Others shifted, unsure of where to place their feet. Some held their arms close to their bodies, guarded. Others stood open, palms bare. The traveler felt their chest tighten. I don't know them, they whispered. The woman stood beside them, her presence steady. You know them more than you think. The traveler stepped closer to the circle. As they did, something remarkable happened. Each figure flickered, and within them appeared fragments of emotion, grief, hope, fear, tenderness, all unmistakably human. One figure caught the traveler's eye. A woman with tired eyes and a posture shaped by long responsibility. When the traveler met her gaze, an ache stirred in their chest, uninvited and deep. I feel her sadness, the traveler murmured. Yes, the woman replied. And she feels yours. The traveler swallowed. But I didn't do anything. The woman nodded. Connection doesn't require action. Only openness. A quiet hum rose from the circle, like a low chord held gently in the air. The figures began to move, not walking, but shifting their attention toward one another. When one leaned inward, another steadied them. When one faltered, Another's presence seemed to lend strength. The traveler felt something warm brush against their own chest. "What is this?" they asked. "This is compassion," the woman said. "Not pity. Not fixing. Just feeling with." The traveler hesitated. "It hurts." "Yes," the woman said softly. "But notice, it does not destroy you." The traveler took a breath. The ache remained, but it did not overwhelm. It pulsed, then softened, like a wave meeting shore. A memory surfaced, a time when someone else had been hurting, and the traveler had turned away, afraid of being pulled under. "I thought I was protecting myself," the traveler whispered. "You were," the woman said. "And now you're learning that protection can also be connection." The circle shifted again. The figures began to share something else now, not pain, but warmth. A laugh rippled through them. A gentle joy, quiet but resilient. It passed from one to another like a shared breath. The traveler felt it brush against their heart. It was not loud happiness. It was not excitement. It was nourishment. "This grows when shared," the woman said. "Joy multiplies when it moves." The traveler looked around in wonder. "I always thought I had to find happiness first, then share it." The woman shook her head. "Often, it's the other way around." The traveler noticed that when they allowed the warmth to move through them, it didn't diminish. It expanded. The more they allowed it to flow outward, the fuller they felt. A realization settled gently into place. "This is why isolation hurts so much," the traveler said. "Because it stops the movement." The woman smiled. "Yes. And why kindness heals both giver and receiver." The circle began to glow softly, threads of light weaving between the figures. Not binding them, but connecting them, flexible, responsive, alive. Then the light shifted again. Some figures in the circle flickered, dimming. Their postures slumped. Their glow faded. The traveler felt a pang of worry. "What's happening?" "They're in pain," the woman said. "And right now, they cannot feel the connection." The traveler instinctively stepped forward. "What can I do?" The woman's gaze was steady. "You can stay." The traveler hesitated. "But I can't fix it." "You're not meant to," she said. "Presence is not fixing." The traveler stood near one of the dim figures. They didn't speak. They didn't reach out. They simply remained. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the figure's glow steadied. Not bright. Just there. The traveler felt something shift inside themselves, a quiet courage, a patience that did not demand outcome. "This," the woman said, "is compassion without control." The circle pulsed again, steadier now. The traveler understood then, joy was not fragile because it could be shared. It was resilient because it could be shared. The space around them began to soften, the figures gently fading, their warmth lingering like an echo. The woman turned to the traveler. "You've learned how joy grows outward," she said. "Now you must learn how to carry it when the world does not return it." The air cooled slightly. The light dimmed, not with sadness, but with gravity. Ahead, a narrow bridge emerged, arching over a dark expanse. It was thinner than the others, and unlike before, there were no guiding lights along its edge. The traveler felt a flicker of fear. "What's there?" they asked. The woman's voice was steady, compassionate. "That," she said, "is where you learn how to keep your heart open when things don't go the way you hoped." The bridge waited. And the traveler, heart full and trembling, took a step toward it. Chapter 10: The Bridge of Unmet Hopes. The bridge did not creak when the traveler stepped onto it, but it did respond, not with sound, but with sensation. The surface felt cool and slightly uneven, like stone shaped by time rather than hands. There were no railings, no markings, only the slow curve of the path stretching into a dim, uncertain distance. Below, darkness moved, not violently, not threateningly, but with depth. It felt like standing above a lake at night, knowing there was water beneath but unable to see how far it went. The traveler took another step. The air grew heavier with each movement, as though every step stirred something long held still. "This place," the traveler said quietly, "feels like disappointment." The woman's voice came from behind, softer than before. "It is the place where expectations go when they are not met." The traveler swallowed. "I thought I was learning how to be happier," they said. "Why does this feel like loss?" "Because growth often asks you to grieve the version of life you thought you were owed," she replied. The bridge dipped slightly. Images began to rise from the darkness below, not fully formed scenes, but impressions, feelings given shape. A celebration that never happened. A relationship that ended before it became what was hoped. A version of the future that once felt certain, now unreachable. Each image drifted upward, hovered for a moment, then dissolved like mist. The traveler's chest tightened. I did everything I was supposed to, they whispered. I tried. I waited. I believed. The woman stepped closer, her presence steady but solemn. Yes, she said. And that makes this grief honest. The traveler paused, knees trembling. I don't want to carry this, they admitted. It feels unfair. It is unfair, she said gently. Not all effort is rewarded the way we expect. The bridge seemed to narrow further, though it remained passable. The traveler's breath grew shallow. I thought if I did the work, they said, voice breaking, life would meet me halfway. The woman looked at them with deep compassion. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it teaches you how to walk without guarantees. The traveler clenched their fists. I don't know how to accept that. You don't have to accept it, the woman replied. Only allow it to be true. A gust of air swept across the bridge, carrying with it a rush of memory, times the traveler had hoped, planned, waited. Times they had imagined a future that never arrived. Tears welled, unexpected and hot. I wanted it so badly, the traveler whispered. The woman did not rush to comfort. She stood beside them, allowing the grief to exist without explanation. This is the cost of caring, she said softly. And it is not a mistake. The travelers sank to their knees. For a moment, the bridge felt like it might give way, not from weakness, but from the sheer weight of feeling. The darkness below shifted, not threateningly, but like a deep ocean receiving a falling leaf. I'm tired, the traveler admitted. Tired of hoping. The woman knelt as well, her presence grounding. Hope isn't a demand, she said. It's a direction. And sometimes, rest is the most hopeful thing you can choose. The traveler closed their eyes. They expected despair. Instead, something else rose, not relief, not joy, but permission. Permission to stop straining. Permission to mourn what never came. Permission to be unfinished. The bridge steadied. The traveler opened their eyes and saw that the darkness below had softened. It was no longer empty. It shimmered faintly, like deep water reflecting distant stars. Loss doesn't erase meaning, the woman said. It reshapes it. The traveler stood slowly. Their legs shook, but they held. Will this hurt again? They asked. Yes, she said honestly. And you will survive it again. The path ahead brightened slightly, not with promise, but with clarity. This is the place where many turn bitter, the woman continued. But it is also where wisdom begins. The traveler took a breath that reached deeper than any before. I don't want to close my heart, they said. Then don't, the woman replied. Just let it rest. The bridge leveled out, widening as it reached the other side. The darkness thinned into shadow, then into a soft, open space filled with quiet light. As the traveler stepped off the bridge, they felt something shift inside them, not a loss, but a release. They had crossed not by conquering pain, but by allowing it to pass through without becoming it. The woman's voice followed gently. The next place will ask you not how to avoid pain, but how to choose meaning even when pain remains. Ahead, a wide plain unfolded, touched by early dawn. And somewhere within it waited the question that would shape everything that followed. Chapter 11, The Field of Chosen Meaning. The plain stretched wide and open, bathed in a light that did not come from the sky but seemed to rise from the ground itself. It was neither morning nor evening. It was the kind of light that existed simply to reveal, not to impress. The traveler stepped forward, and the earth beneath their feet felt firm, steady, neither pulling nor resisting. The air was clear, carrying no weight, no demand. For the first time in a long while, nothing seemed to be happening. No tests. No mirrors. No voices. Just space. The traveler slowed, unsure. Is this it? The woman appeared beside them, her presence quieter than ever, like a thought you almost miss. This is where many people grow uncomfortable, she said. Because there is no instruction here. The traveler looked around. The plain was wide and empty, stretching far beyond sight. No paths. No markers. No obstacles. I don't understand, they said. What am I supposed to do? The woman smiled faintly. That question is the doorway. They walked together in silence for a while. Each step felt deliberate, as if the ground itself asked to be chosen. After some time, the traveler noticed something strange. Wherever they walked, the earth changed slightly beneath their feet. Grass grew softer. Colors deepened. The air warmed. They stopped. Did I do that? The traveler asked. The woman nodded. Meaning is not found here. It's made. The traveler frowned. But how do I know what matters? The woman gestured across the vastness. You notice what draws you forward. What costs you something, but feels worth the cost. The traveler looked ahead. In the distance, faint shapes appeared, not clear images, but suggestions. A figure helping another stand. A small fire shared between strangers. A pair of hands shaping something slowly, patiently. None of it promised comfort. None of it promised reward. But something in the traveler stirred. They took a step toward one of the shapes, and the ground beneath that step glowed brighter. Meaning isn't pleasure, the woman said. It's alignment. The traveler felt the truth of it resonate through their body. Pleasure came and went. But this felt like orientation. Like standing in the right direction, even if the path ahead was long. But what if I choose wrong? The traveler asked. You will, the woman replied calmly. And then you will choose again. The traveler let out a quiet breath that was almost a laugh. You say that a lot. Because it's the most forgiving truth there is. They walked further. The plain began to populate with others, not crowds, but individuals moving with quiet intention. Some carried burdens. Some carried tools. Some walked with companions. Others alone. Each moved differently, yet the ground beneath all of them glowed faintly, responding to their steps. The traveler noticed something else now. No one was watching anyone else's path. There was no comparison here. No ranking. Just movement. I don't have to be the best? The traveler asked softly. The woman shook her head. Only honest. The traveler felt something loosen inside, a long-held tension they hadn't known how to name. They paused near a low hill. At its base sat a stone with markings worn smooth by time. The traveler touched it, and a feeling rose, not of instruction, but of permission. Permission to choose work that mattered, even if it went unseen. Permission to care deeply without guarantee. Permission to live in alignment rather than applause. I think I understand, the traveler said slowly. Meaning isn't something I find once. It's something I practice. The woman's eyes softened. Yes. And it changes as you do. A breeze passed through the plain, carrying warmth and a sense of motion. Far ahead, the land sloped gently upward towards something not yet visible. The air there felt different, brighter, but also heavier, as if something important waited. The traveler felt a familiar tightening in their chest. What's next? They asked. The woman's expression grew thoughtful. Next, you will face the part of yourself that resists all of this. The traveler swallowed. Why? Because meaning requires commitment, she said. And commitment awakens fear. The light ahead pulsed once softly. There is a voice in you, the woman continued, that would rather stay safe than stay true. The traveler exhaled slowly. I think I know that voice. You will, she said. Very well. They began walking toward the rising light, each step steady, grounded, chosen. Behind them, the plain remained, not vanishing, but waiting, ready to be returned to whenever the traveler needed to remember what mattered. Ahead, the path narrowed again. And waiting within that narrowing space was the final test, not of strength, not of knowledge, but of courage to live by what had been learned. Chapter 12, The Voice That Bargains. The narrowing path did not darken this time. Instead, it sharpened. The air grew clear and thin, like standing high above the world where every sound carries farther than expected. The ground beneath the traveler's feet became smoother, almost polished, as though worn down by countless careful steps. There was no wind, no warmth, no cold, only stillness. And then a voice spoke. It did not come from the woman. It came from everywhere and nowhere, woven into the traveler's own breath. You've come far, it said kindly. You deserve rest. The traveler stopped. The voice was familiar. Comforting. It sounded like reason. Like common sense. You've learned enough. It continued. You understand yourself now. Isn't that enough? The traveler felt a subtle easing in their chest. The idea of stopping, of settling into what had already been learned, felt appealing. Peaceful. The woman stood a few steps behind, silent. The traveler hesitated. Who are you? They asked. The voice chuckled softly. I'm the part of you that keeps you safe. The air shimmered, and shapes formed, images of a comfortable life, predictable and calm. Mornings that repeated themselves gently. Days without conflict. Choices that never demanded risk. You could stay here, the voice said. You've done the work. You've grown. Why push further and risk losing it? The traveler felt a pull toward the images. They weren't false. They weren't cruel. They were comfortable. I don't want to lose what I've learned, the traveler admitted. And you won't, the voice replied. Not if you stop here. The ground beneath the traveler's feet felt solid, inviting them to remain. The woman finally spoke. This is the voice of comfort, she said quietly. Not safety. Comfort. The voice responded smoothly. I protect them from pain. And from growth, the woman said. The traveler felt torn. What's wrong with staying? They asked. Isn't peace the goal? The woman stepped closer. Peace and avoidance can look very similar, she said. The difference is whether you're choosing from fullness or fear. The voice interjected gently. Why chase more when this is enough? The traveler closed their eyes. Inside, they felt the truth of both sides. This place offered rest, certainty, the absence of tension. But it also carried a stillness that bordered on stagnation. I'm tired, the traveler whispered. I know, said the voice. That's why you should stop. The woman placed a hand over the traveler's heart. Rest is not the same as retreat, she said. And comfort is not the same as fulfillment. The traveler opened their eyes. The images of ease began to waver, revealing something underneath, a quiet dullness, a subtle shrinking of possibility. The traveler felt a flicker of sadness. I see it now, they said softly. If I stay, I won't suffer, but I won't grow. The voice sighed, no longer coaxing, just weary. Growth hurts. Yes, the traveler said. But so does staying small. The path ahead brightened slightly, not inviting, not threatening, simply open. The voice grew faint. You don't have to go. The traveler took a breath. I know. They stepped forward. The world shifted. The comfortable illusions faded like mist, revealing a path that rose gently upward. The air felt clearer, more alive. The ground responded with quiet strength beneath their feet. The woman walked beside them once more. That voice will return, she said. Often. The traveler nodded. I know. But now you know it too. They walked in silence for a while. Ahead, the path widened into a place of convergence, where many paths seemed to meet, crossing and diverging in countless ways. The traveler sensed something approaching, not a test, not a trial, but a choice that would define how they carried everything they had learned back into the world. The air hummed softly. And in the distance, something waited that felt like both an ending and a beginning. Quick question before you go. What's one belief about happiness you're ready to unlearn? Drop it in the comments. I want to see where you're at. And tell me which book you want us to turn into the next immersive story. Like the video, subscribe to Momentum Mind, and keep moving forward. Because momentum isn't motivation, it's a way of living.